right. Thank you, Reese. Welcome, everybody. Welcome to Midweek. Great to be together. And I hope you had a good day today. And if not, I hope you have a good evening. So we're going to jump on in here. And let me put my slides up here. I'm going to both record this and to my computer. And I'm going to put it up on the screen. There we go. Okay, so hopefully you can see my slides. Reese, text me if you can't. Tonight's lesson, we're going to do a lesson on love and fear. I've been actually studying out fear, and I'm studying out things that block love or that get in the way of healthy relationships and love. I want to do some practicals of just, we've been growing a lot in our love. You can feel it. You really feel it on Sunday mornings. But just in general, we're so proud of our ministry, how we're growing. We're becoming that vision that we set out to be several years ago. And that's exciting. But I want to talk a little bit. I'm going to do a little series about things that block that, things that get in our way of being the fellowship that we want to be. And fear is a big one. And as I was actually preparing and studying, I thought, gosh, this could be 3 or 4 classes. But I just want to hit it lightly tonight. So there's a quote that I really appreciated by Dallas Willard. It said, "Fear can be a good servant, but a terrible master." There's good fear and then there's bad fear, right? There's good fear that will keep and help us out, but too much fear and it can really be pretty bad, right? There's 2 main kinds of fear that we generally deal with, and the fear is a very common topic in the Bible. I've preached before on it and talked about how actually I read a quote in a book that said there's 365 scriptures on fear. And actually somebody asked me for all of them, and I went through and I found about 230. So I can't find 365, but it's over 200. I know that for sure. And that's a lot of scriptures about fear. Wow, there's not many things in the whole Bible that God talks about 200 times. And we could break them down into a lot of categories, but for tonight's lesson, we're just talking about healthy fear and toxic fear. Toxic fear, obviously, not the kind of fear we want. But there's also a good fear, right? There's a healthy fear. Healthy fear generally protects you, guides you, keeps you safe, right? There's things that we can and should be afraid of because there's danger, and danger is a real thing, right? There's things that are dangerous out there. There are people that are dangerous. There's situations that are dangerous. There's just danger out there, and fear helps us stay out of it, helps us to stay safe, because the reality is there's dangerous situations, there's risky situations, there's unsafe situations, and people can get hurt and people can die if they don't have a healthy fear. There's just certain things that we shouldn't be doing because they're too risky, and fear helps us to do that. There's a lot of people can be very dangerous, just doing things that are dangerous. And the thing about danger is a lot of people don't really believe in it until something bad happens, right? But there's a lot of danger out there, and you can't live in fear and gripped by fear. But again, talking about healthy fear, there's good, healthy fear to keep us from doing stupid stuff, right? I love, there's a website that has all these Darwin, social Darwinism, how just people do some dumb things that risk their lives. This guy's over here's got a bag over his head because he's trying to protect himself from the sparks, but of course you could suffocate with a bag. This guy's sawing a board in half on someone's back, and this guy over here is grinding metal, and he's standing on tanks, who have who knows what in them. Or this guy over here who tied a rope around his neck in case he falls, or this guy over here, the other side, somebody's holding him up with a 2x4. I mean, good night. If that thing slips, he's going to have permanent damage, and he ain't having any kids. But people, these are real pictures. People do crazy stuff. This guy over here is standing on his Jeep. He's somewhere in Africa looking for lions, and right behind him, there's a lion. And just so it's good to have fear, right? There's good things to be afraid of. Oh yeah, I remember these guys they're in the pool on a table, have a radio playing and music playing, but the outlet is sitting on two floating sandals in the pool. I mean, that's connected to their house. That drops in the water, these guys are toast. And oh yeah, this is the last one. Pulling a lion's tail. How dumb can you be? How stupid? There's danger, right? There's real danger. There are things, there are people, there are situations that we absolutely should be fearful of. So fear is not always a bad thing. There's good, healthy fear, and that will keep us alive and keep us out of danger. But tonight we're talking more about toxic fear that's not good for us, fear that hurts our lives, fear that keeps us back, that keeps us down, that keeps us from being and achieving all we could, right? There's a lot of toxic fears out there, some pretty big ones. Some people are honestly afraid of God. Some disciples are afraid of God. They see God as a disciplinarian who's angry, who's disappointed, and they spending a bunch of time with God is like spending a bunch of time with your school principal or with your parole officer. If you don't have a good understanding of God, then why would you want to spend a lot of time with him? Why would you want to go and spend eternity with him? That's probably one of the most damaging of toxic fears. There's people that are afraid of church because they have been hurt or they've heard about things in the church, or it challenges them in ways. And some people have a very real fear of the church. Sometimes we're afraid of love. We're afraid of commitment. We're afraid of getting hurt. When you love, you become vulnerable and you can get hurt. And sometimes the people that hurt us the most are the people we love the most. Nobody can hurt you like family, because family knows you and you've got years invested. And when you fall in love, you are most vulnerable. And there's a lot of fear out there of people, because people mess up, people hurt each other, people do bad things. Some people are dangerous. Some people are reckless. So these are fears that can really affect us. And there's a lot of common ones that actually can really affect our lives. Fear of failure keeps us from taking risks, keeps us from trying new things, from stepping out. Fear of success even. You think, well, doesn't everybody want success? No, sometimes people are afraid of success, because once you're successful, people have high expectations and they want you to do great all the time, and they want you to do super well. And you do something super well, then you have this pressure of, I've got to keep doing everything great. Or fear of mistakes. A lot of us have that. We're afraid of blowing it. And sometimes because when we were kids and we messed up, somebody jumped all over us or humiliated us or made fun of us or something. So we have this deep fear of mistakes, which makes us be very cautious, makes us hold back, makes us not wanting to do anything that's risky. Fear of shame. Some of us we grew up in houses or in families where shaming was just normal. People did it all the time, made you feel ashamed. Anything you messed up, anything you said wrong or did wrong, these are real fears that lots of us have. All of us have some of these, and some of us have all of them. Fear of intimacy, even, because when we're really close and affectionate with others, we're very vulnerable. And if they reject us, oh man, that could be so devastating. Fear of commitment. Some people don't want to commit because they don't want to be disappointed. They don't want to disappoint somebody, or they don't want to be disappointed. And so they're just afraid of anything that's commitment. That can be a relationship, a romantic relationship. That can be even with the church. I don't want to be committed because something could go wrong. I could get hurt. Fear of emotion. Some people just don't want to get mad. They don't want to be sad. They just want to be level. And a lot of times if we grew up in a very emotional household, or somebody would lose it, we learn to control our emotions and not show them, not share them, not live them. And that could really mess us up. Fear of change, for whatever reason, and a lot of different reasons, people get afraid of change and want to hang on to, let's keep everything the same. Don't be changing things. Don't change the schedule. Don't change the location. Don't change how we do things. A lot of people are afraid of change. Rejection, that's a big one, especially when we're younger, but really our whole lives. But like in high school, man, there's a huge fear of rejection, of not being accepted, not being in the in crowd, not being with the cool kids, not being rejected, being made fun of, being bullied, being hurt by a group. Social media can be so brutal now. And these are weapons that nobody had in the past. And that's why I said last Sunday, it's hard being a teen. I don't think, as us adults, we definitely don't realize how hard it is for the teens and even college kids, but especially teens. And fear of suffering. Some people, especially if you've suffered a lot as a kid, you can become so fearful of going through hard times that you like work too much. You got to save, you got to have a ton of money in the bank. You're just constantly driven because you don't ever want to be poor again, or you don't ever want to be hungry again, or you don't ever want to get hurt again. So you can't overcompensate for that. Fear of losing control. Sometimes when we've been hurt a lot in our past, we try to control everybody and everything. That way we can keep ourselves safe. And some people really fear not being in control. Some people fear the future because whatever reason, bad things happen. And some people shouldn't watch the news because they just become so fearful. It just wrecks them. Fear of disappointment. Some people don't want to hope, don't want to believe, don't want to have faith because they're afraid of being disappointed. Maybe when they were young Christians or when they were kids, they had all this hope for their life and it didn't pan out. And now they just don't want to try anything because they don't want to be disappointed in themselves. They don't want to disappoint others. So it's a big topic. I mean, obviously, most of us, we can look at this list and I got that one, and that one, and that's not even going into depth, but what happens with these toxic fears? Well, they debilitate us. They handicap us. They cripple us. It makes it hard to overcome it makes it hard to overcome our fears and do things. It can stunt our growth, our development. We don't try, or we don't deal with problems. And people in the world, they just numb out. They get high, they get drunk, they just go goof around and mess up, and they numb themselves out, and you're stunted. Then they don't grow emotionally. It's how people get addicted, and it stunts your emotional growth. It stunts your development. Same thing can happen spiritually. We don't want to step out. We don't want to serve because, man, we got burned out 10 years ago. And so we have no impact now. We're just living little cautious lives, right? I mean, that, like the old saying, the safest place for a ship is in the harbor. But ships weren't built to be in the harbor. They were they were built to go out and sail. And sometimes we can get overly focused on being safe and being secure and being out of danger, and then nothing happens in our life. It robs us of blessings. I mean, fruit, there's an old saying, fruit is at the end of the branch. So to get to fruit, you got to go out on a limb. And sometimes it doesn't work out. Sometimes we fail or mess up or we make mistakes. And if you live in fear of those things, you're not going to get the blessings. You're not going to be blessed the way God would have blessed you if you'd stepped out on faith, if you'd taken risks for God. It prevents us from achieving. We don't try because we're afraid of failure. So we just think, I can't do that, or I would never do that, or I'm not that good, or I'm not smart enough or talented enough. It can totally ruin relationships. We get so cautious, or we react to each other. We get defensive. We get prideful. Why? All because we're afraid of getting hurt. All because we're afraid of being too vulnerable and being disappointed or being hurt or being abandoned. I mean, those of us that grew up in crazy households, we have this deep fear of abandonment, of neglect. So it can be really scary putting ourselves out there and building friendships and loving up on people, and which all of those things make us generally unhappy and unfulfilled, because all these great things that God has out there for us, we can get afraid to go after it, and we just play it cautious, and we just don't, it can easily become the goal is don't get hurt, and be safe. The problem is, you end up locking yourself in a room, right? You don't have it. And so fear can ruin a life. It can ruin your life. It can ruin my life. And it can make life super hard. It can make life miserable when we live in fear, and that's what we think of, and that's what we see, and that's what we're avoiding, And obviously, we're not going to be foolish. We're not going to be stupid. There's I already talked about, there's good fear out there, but toxic fear, it's like this huge ball chained to your ankle. You can't run. You can't fly. You can't do great things if you're gripped by fear. In fact, you may not even serve or give at all. You may not be able to be a good husband or a good dad or a good mom because you're cautious and you're afraid. And of course, fear leads to all kinds of things with stress and anxiety and sadness and depression and all kinds of things that can become a major part of our lives if we don't deal with it, if we don't deal with fear. And it can actually be where we become perpetually afraid. It's perpetual fear. We're always afraid of being rejected. We're always afraid of being abandoned. We're afraid of being excluded, not invited, not part of the group, being left out, being alone. We're afraid of loneliness. We're afraid of pain. We get afraid of being hurt. So the best thing is don't make friends. Don't give your heart away. Don't reach out to people. Don't just keep it all in close. Live your life. Have everybody leave you alone, but then you're not really living life. And you're really living a prisoner. And the thing about fear is it doesn't discriminate. It's indiscriminate. It affects rich people, poor people, every color of people, every type of person. It can ruin anybody's life. I mean, there are people in big, beautiful mansions that are miserable because they're locked up and tied up with fear. And they don't know how to love, and they don't know how to experience life to the full because of fear. And hopefully you understand and you're relating to some of this, because we all have fear. And the issue isn't, do you have fear? The issue is, are you dealing with it? Or is it dealing with you? Are you managing it, or is it managing you? Are you able to overcome, or are you being overcome? And that's fear. And then there's an interesting question. If you look up fear in the Bible, there's a whole bunch of scriptures about fearing the Lord. And I just talked about how toxic, that's one of the worst toxic fears, is to be afraid of God. So why are there so many scriptures about fearing the Lord? Well, let's talk about that for a minute. Proverbs 1:7 says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, or oftentimes quoted in the new NIV, I think, or the old NIV or new NIV, one of them says is the beginning of wisdom. But fools despise wisdom and instruction. So fear is the beginning of knowledge, is the beginning of wisdom. Fear helps us be wise, helps us not do stupid stuff. Even with God, right? And he says, let us hear the conclusion of the whole matter. Fear God and keep his commandments, for this is the whole duty of man. I mean, this is what everything God wants you to do, is fear him and keep his commandments. It's like, wait, I thought we just thought fear was bad. It can be bad. It can also be good. He says, for God shall bring every work into judgment with every secret thing, whether it be good or whether it be evil. So he says, fear God and obey him, because, hey, we're all going to be judged. So why fear the Lord? Well, short answer is for wisdom, for rightness. And I'm saying rightness because if I say righteousness, people think it's just being religious. Rightness, doing things the right way. When we are fearing judgment, when we know, man, I'm going to be held accountable for what I do, that a lot of times helps us do what's right, right? And knowing that someday I will be judged, someday I will stand in front of God and give an account of my life. That's a good fear. That's a good way to make me think about what I'm doing. But why does he want us to fear him? So you don't get hurt. So you don't do foolish things like those pictures I was showing. We do a lot of foolish things. And who does that hurt? Well, it usually hurts the people around us, but also hurts us. So bottom line, it just hurts lots of people when we live foolishly. When we do things the wrong way, it hurts us and it hurts everybody around us. When we try to be dads and we're not good dads and we're not trying to do the right thing, our kids get hurt for life. And God cares about this. He wants us to do things right. So it's for our own protection. And the fact that he will judge us. I mean, that's, it's one of the promises of God is that every single one of us will stand in front of the judge, in front of God. So why does he tell us this? So that we'll take care of ourselves, so that we'll do the right thing, so that when we're not motivated to do well, we might be afraid enough to not do stupid things. Bottom line is because he loves us. It's because he wants us to have a great life, and he wants everybody around us to have a great life, and he wants all of us to be able to be with him. And all these things that fear stops us from sinning, stops us from doing stupid things, stops us from not thinking, makes us think through, what am I doing? Is this the right thing? And am I going to be ready to answer the judge? Another way of looking at these scriptures on fear is to put the word respect in there. It's not fear like, somebody who is got a bad temper and out of control, or who's drunk, or that's one kind of fear. That's not the kind of fear that fearing the Lord is. Fearing the Lord is like respecting that he is all powerful, all knowing, and that he will judge us one day. That's what we're talking about. God is just. In other words, he treats us fairly. God is love. In other words, he's on our side and he cares about you and he wants you to do great. Okay, so so it's really more what we think of as respect. Respect the Lord. And a fool does not respect the Lord, but a man of God respects the Lord and knows he is my judge and he will help me. In Exodus 20:20, it says, Moses said to the people, do not be afraid, for God has come to test you so that the fear of God will be with you to keep you from sinning. So the fear of God will help us to stay on the right path, to do what's right, and to live like we're wise, even if we're not wise. I mean, sometimes, especially, the young man's folly is foolishness. A lot of times we don't think through things. We don't think about consequences, and we do stupid stuff. And fear of God will keep us from doing those stupid stuff. But at the bottom line is it's because he cares about us. In 1 Samuel 12:24, he says, but be sure to fear the Lord and serve him faithfully with all your heart. Consider what great things he has done for you. So we're not talking about somebody who's grouchy and angry and unfair and out of control, and you can't, you should be afraid of him because he might lose it on you. No, we're talking about somebody who loves you and you should serve with all your heart and think about all the great things he has done for you. Last midweek that I taught on prayer, and one of those keys is beginning and ending with gratitude, beginning thanking God and ending thanking God. And another one was praising God. That's what he's talking about here. Consider things he has done for you. Let me tell you, it'll change your life. If that's on your mind, what has God done for me? Like every morning I get up and I thank God. Usually the first thing I thank God for is my bed and my pillow. And then I thank him for Michelle. And then I thank him for all my kids and Karina and my dog and my dogs. And I even thank him for our parrot that drives me crazy all the time. But this is a great parrot. It's been with us like 23 years. And I just start going down the list in my mind. Thanking God. I thank God for our elders and our ministry. I thank God for Reese and Casey and James. And I thank God for all our elders and the Bible Talk leaders and the metro region. And man, by the time I'm done, I'm just like feeling so good, right? And so, man, I just respect God because he gave me all this. Psalm 34:4, I sought the Lord and he answered me and rescued me from all my fears. This is what we're talking about. We respect God because he's the one that rescues us. And this is why we can be confident, even though the world is a dangerous place, even though there's a lot of dangerous people out there, even though that even people do bad things and mess up and blow it and hurt each other's feelings, even in the church. But we know that God will rescue us. And that's why we can feel secure. That's why we can have hope. And that's why we can love freely and be vulnerable and give our hearts away, even though we know people are going to mess up, because God can rescue us and God can make lemonade out of lemons, and he can turn things back around and heal and restore us. 1 John 4:18. And this is really, it's one thing for a non-Christian to fear the Lord because he's going to face judgment, right? And going to be held accountable for his sins. But as disciples, the fear of the Lord is very different. I mean, you could actually argue, as John did, that there is no fear in love. He says there's no fear in love. Perfect love drives out fear. This is a disciple's perspective. I don't need to be afraid of God because God loves me and I love him. And does that mean all those other scriptures don't apply? No, but think of them as more respect. But as a person who loves God, it drives out the fear, because fear has to do with punishment. We're not facing punishment as disciples. You and I, when we die, we're not going to get punished. You know what we're going to hear? Well done, good and faithful servant. Good job. And you're going to be thinking, yeah, but I blew it here, I blew it here, I blew it here, I didn't do that, I didn't do this. And God's going to say, well done, good and faithful servant. Because he knows how imperfect we are. He knows we're sinners. He knows we're weak. He knows we mess up. But a disciple, when he falls, gets back up, stays faithful, keeps trying, keeps working to help others, keeps trying to love. The one who fears is not made perfect in love. As we grow as disciples, we grow in our love. Psalm 27:1, the Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? When you are confident in God's love for you, when God is your light and your salvation, when you know God's going to save me from whatever. Look, this world is messed up and bad things happen in this world. And Satan is the ruler of this world. And God doesn't take us out of it yet. There'll be a time he's going to take us out to a safe place, but not here right now. So stuff's going to happen. But who do I need to be afraid of? Well, if God is my stronghold, the Lord is my stronghold of my life, I don't need to be afraid of anybody, because God will fix it. God will heal me. God will help me. Psalm 56:3-4. When I am afraid, I put my trust in you. In God, whose word I praise, in God I trust, am not afraid. What can mere mortals do to me? I mean, and I understand this is a very spiritual perspective, right? What's the worst somebody could do? They can kill me. And then I get to be with God forever. That's basically what it's saying. And I know most people don't have that level of spirituality where they feel that confident about their salvation, but that is the goal. Is we need to understand that there's nothing the world or Satan can do to us or anybody that God can't fix and make right. The God who loves you and cares about you, the God that you can trust, the one that you can trust because he's devoted. And how many times does God say in the Bible, do not be afraid, for I am with you, right? Even though I walk through the darkest valley, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Why do I not need to fear? Because God is with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. God takes care of me. Even when bad things happen, God still takes care of me. Even when the world makes me suffer, God still heals me and takes care of me. That's why I love Psalm 23. It's why so many of us memorized it. And if you never memorized it, I challenge you to memorize it. Security and safety is not the absence of danger. It is the presence of God. Remember that. What makes us safe, a safe place, is not where there is no danger, it's where God is present. Fear is the opposite of faith. Put our faith in God, we know we will be blessed. We will be taken care of. I love Isaiah 43:2. He says, when you pass through the waters, I will be with you. When you pass through the rivers, they will not sweep over you. When you walk through the fire, you will not be burned. The flames will not set you ablaze. This is God's promise. Look, when you're going through hard times, it's not going to destroy you. When you're suffering, it ain't over yet, because I will be with you. He doesn't say he's going to take us to a place where we don't suffer and where nothing bad happens. As long as we're on this planet, we will suffer and bad things will happen. But he'll be with us. And in the end, he'll correct it all. But even now, he's with us. Fear not, for I am with you. God will help you overcome. He'll help you heal, and he'll help you get stronger. And this isn't, I'm not saying that all you got to do is pray and everything will be great. But I'll tell you this, the more we understand the power of God being with us, the more we can overcome, the more we can heal, and the more we can get stronger. Sometimes that's why we need to have counseling or see a therapist, somebody to help us connect the dots so that we don't just get stuck in our fear or stuck in our wounds or stuck in our pain. God will help you through it. And God puts people in our lives that will help us through it. I think a lot of therapists and counselors are out there doing God's work. They're helping people get unstuck. And especially Christian counselors, even better. But the thing you got to know is that God is good. He's giving you, he's not pointing a finger at you. He's giving you a helping hand. He's giving you a helping hand. So I close out Isaiah 41. I think I got one more. He says, so do not fear, for I am with you. Do not be dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you and help you. I will uphold you with my righteous hand. Isn't that awesome? You got to grab onto that. He says, don't be afraid, for I am with you. Don't be discouraged or dismayed, for I am your God. I am your God, he's saying to you. I will strengthen you, and I will help you, and I'll hold you up with my righteous right hand. How awesome is that? So here's some questions to chew on with our group to discuss. What are you afraid of? And it's good to know. It's good to think about that. Maybe tomorrow morning, get up and make a list. What am I really afraid of? And submit that to God. I talk about it tonight. What are the things we're afraid of? Who are we afraid of? Sometimes we're afraid of the wrong people. We're afraid of the preacher, the church leader, the Bible talk leader, the brother, the sister, because they might ask us something and they really actually care about us. And I'm talking about unhealthy fear, not healthy. There's some people that we do need to avoid, but we gotta stop and think about that. Who am I afraid of? What difference does God's promises make in your life? I mean, the fact that God promises to be with you, does that make a difference for you? And can you trust God? Can you trust God? I think it's a pretty good question that we need to answer in our hearts. Do I trust God? Do I trust him that he'll help me out? Can I say, I'm not going to be anxious about anything. I'm not going to worry. I'm not going to worry about what I eat or drink or what I wear, but I'm going to trust God every day. Can I trust him? So we end with that. Fear not, for the Lord is with you.